welcome back to the final segment. This is the part where we ask questions from you, the audience, to our panelists. First, let's introduce our panelists one by one. Of course, the last speaker, Preston Dennett. Give him a round of applause, everybody. And then we have Richard Shaw, who happened to be our first speaker. And, of course, L.A. Marzulli. All right. All right, I'm going to start with questions from the audience. Okay, this first one is actually from Linda Chambers. This is more something to incite you on about healings. Did you know that Minister Farrakhan's daughter was in the hospital and a saucer UFO appeared outside the hospital room? She was healed. Farrakhan told this story to Dr. Lear. Did you know about that?
No, I didn't, but there you go. It's fitting that pattern again. Influential people are the ones who are being healed.
And the hospital. I thought that was really interesting.
Very interesting, yeah.
All right. This is from Richard to L.A. Marzulli. Why doesn't the scientific community recognize the giant phenomenon, and is it because it would doom the current evolution paradigm?
Yes.
Next question.
Okay. This is to you, Preston. Can you talk about the Malibu underwater base?
Well, I could talk for hours about it, yeah. Briefly, I think that there's an enormous amount of evidence supporting the existence of the underwater base. And I base that on hundreds of reports of eyewitnesses who are seeing these craft going in and out of the water, among other things. I could talk quite a bit about that, but that's really a hours-long subject. I think there is definitely something going on there, though.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Rick, this is for you.
Okay.
How is it possible for the Torah codes to contain the word airplane considering when it was written? And are there any coordinates of events that appear in the Torah?
Coordinates as in Earth coordinates?
I'm assuming coordinates on the planet, like longitude, latitude. I could be wrong. There's no name, so whoever wrote this question, if you want to fill that in.
Well,
by all
first of
means.
all, the first part of the question is, just because a word happens to be in the modern dictionary doesn't mean it can't be encoded, because the encoding is about another time, which is our time. So it doesn't surprise me you can find the word airplane in other words that are, because it mentions people from our time. Obama is encoded, Hitler is encoded, astronaut is encoded, those kind of things. So it's amazing. The space shuttle disaster was encoded. There's thousands of codes like that. As far as about the Earth coordinate thing,
yeah.
I know of another researcher, but he uses a technique called a wraparound search mode, where basically it searches through the whole Torah twice. He swears he's gotten Earth coordinates. Another researcher who wrote the original Bible Code book, Michael Drosnin, in his third book, said that they found coordinates for a terrorist base in Yemen in the Torah codes. That's in the third Torah code book. And he worked with Professor Rips to try to find if they had an atomic bomb located somewhere in the desert, and couldn't find a code for that, but they did look.
This next one is for LA. The skeleton on Catalina appears to be closer to the camera than the archaeologist in the photo. Was this accounted for in the height calculations?
Yeah, all three researchers, took that into consideration. All part of the equation. The moment all three of them looked at it, there's actually a fourth guy who wrote me when he looked at the photograph, basically said that it showed no signs of tampering, no signs of any type of Photoshop. It seemed to be the real deal. Remember, I'm sitting with my camera on a tripod shooting the photograph. And then all the other three researchers who analyzed the photograph were able to ascertain that the skeleton is about 7 feet away from Ralph Glidden, roughly 7 feet. They took all that. What's amazing about the program is they're able to take the photograph and digitize it and basically move it. I mean, they can, once it's digitized, they can just kind of, play with objects, move it around, see what it looks like. It's pretty fascinating, actually. That's all in the book.
What's interesting is that photograph is of an age before, photographic manipulation was a big deal.
Before Photoshop.
Right.
Yeah.
So, how do you explain
What
that?
year was it again?
1919.
Wow. Almost 100 years ago.
Now,
Okay.
can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
When I found that, when I'm looking through all these photographs, you know, it's Ralph Glidden, usually just in a bone pile, whatever. And all of a sudden I hit pay dirt. That was one of the ones that was major pay dirt. And I just sat there, I called the curator over, and I said, look at this. And he leaned over and he just went, oh my gosh. Now he had looked at the photograph, but he's looking at it with blinders on. He's not looking for what I'm looking for. I went looking for six fingers, elongated skulls, and giants. And I found all three on the island with photographic proof.
This doesn't say who it's to, but this is a broad question. I'm assuming the author saw something. Has there been any sightings reported on July 6, 2015 in Anaheim, California, Monday about 10 p.m.? Anybody know?
I'm sure there was.
Whoever wrote this, I would check with MUFON. They have a good record of
Or
reports.
Newfork.
Or Newfork, yeah. Peter Davenport's Newfork, yeah. Definitely look into those two. Okay, to LA again. What do you think of the 29th of Elul, E-L-U-L, is that pronounced right?
Oh,
Yeah.
In what,
September.
in
From
what
summer.
regard? The Shemitah year? You've got the blood moons, you've got the Shemitah year, you've got the Pope coming, you've got supposedly Planet X showing up, you've got Jade Helm this summer. I mean, everything is, it's getting really weird. I mean, I think we can say that, it's getting really weird. The Chinese stock market went down 3 trillion. Hello. Greece is on the verge of collapsing. We're 18 trillion in debt. Volcanic activity is peaking, despite what the USGS tell us. It is peaking. 8.0 earthquakes the graph goes like this. They're peaking. Social unrest globally. The supernatural is manifesting. More UFO sightings than ever before. I just think we're headed like a freight train towards this time that the biblical narrative points to and says the time of Jacob's trouble. I wish I had better news, but I mean, that's what I see. And the Middle East is a cauldron. The Middle East, there's more than likely will be a war soon. There has to be. Israel is boxed into a corner. She's got no way out. So I know there's lots of different opinions on that, but Hezbollah in the north has got 150,000 rockets. Hamas is rearming, retooling, more tunnels. Now you've got ISIL, which are absolutely insane group of people. If the Iranians, if they get the bomb, the first thing they'll do is try to hit Tel Aviv with it. I mean, Israel has no choice. She's got to strike out. And that's World War III. That's also been prophesied. Read the Psalm 83. Read Psalm 83. Those nations are exactly what we're looking at right now. Right now, right on the calendar, right now, Psalm 83. When you go back and look at where those nations are, you can see for yourself exactly what's shaping up. This is what's incredible. That psalm is like, what, 2,500 years old? And it calls out with great specificity what will happen to Israel in the latter days. There was no Israel till 1948. They were scattered, just like another prophecy says that they would be scattered. Yet, we see that they're brought back. The place to watch is the Middle East. Everything springs from there, in my opinion.
Well, then there's tomorrow, too.
Yeah?
There's an announcement tomorrow by the
Temple.
Temple Reconstruction Institute on rebuilding the Third Temple in Jerusalem, which would completely change the appearance of Jerusalem from what it is today.
Which has also been prophesied.
Was that in the Torah codes as well?
No,
You got to do it. You got to do it.
we'll have to do it. Yeah, there's so much stuff we can hardly keep up with it.
Okay, here's 2 more questions for LA and then one for Preston. LA, is there a link between the Nephilim and the biggest or Bigfoot Sasquatch?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. Yeah. He shows up at my house 2 days ago with a little miniature Sasquatch in a box. Action figure. It's great. We went to Peru twice with Ron Moorhead. Ron Moorhead's written a book called Sierra Sounds. Sierra Sounds, Ron is an adventurer, and this place in the Sierra Madres, you drive on a dirt road for like an hour, and then you unload the mule and the horse from a trailer, and you pack in for 8 hours. That's the only way you can reach this place. Now, the state owns the meadow, but you can't land there with a helicopter. But that would be the way to go. And that's only like a mile away. But they won't let you do that. So he's got to pack in. This has been going on for 20 years, over 20 years. There's a family of these entities which are there. He recorded the sounds. They are incredibly elusive, incredibly elusive. He came on the record in Watchers 8 and told us, that's 18 inches, folks, right there, okay? That's 28 inches. He found 27-inch footprints, 27-inch footprints. And the stride between the prints were 15 feet. The bottom line is people see them just disappear. They come in, they come out. They're also associated a lot of times with UFO sightings. My personal feeling, Ron Moorhead backed this up in Watchers 8. He thinks, as I do, in fact, there's another real quick little rabbit trail. There's a site that we're investigating right now. It's unbelievable. This guy's got encounters with a family of them, and he was about 10 to 15 feet from a female. But he's protecting them. But we also caution them that you don't know what you're dealing with here, friend. I mean, you don't know what you're dealing with. They're highly intelligent, and here's the payoff. I believe that, yes, there's a definite connection between the Sasquatch and the Nephilim. I believe that they can pop in and they can pop out.
Here's
I
part
think it's
B of
genetic
that question.
experimentation.
Or perhaps the story of David and Goliath from the Bible, the connection between Nephilim and that.
Well, Goliath was a Nephilim, there's no doubt. And that's what's interesting is, and this is conjecture on my part, when David takes the sling, he picks up 4 other stones. Chuck Missler who thought about this, or was one of the first guys that I heard talk about it. Picks up four stones for Goliath's other brothers, who had 6 fingers and were huge. They were also Nephilim. Whirls the stone. We all know the story. Hits the giant in the head. Remember, no one will get near this guy because he's powerful. First thing he does is he goes up and he takes the sword and he decapitates Goliath. Why does he do that? It's possible, conjecture, it's possible that these entities have the ability to heal themselves. So you couldn't kill them. The only way to kill them was decapitation. Interestingly enough, Goliath from Gath, Golgotha, the place of the skull where Yeshua is crucified.
We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through all these questions. This next one is for Preston from the same person, anonymous. Preston, any healings by reptilian beings and any UFO sightings here in Culver City?
First one, no. I did not find a single one, which I found kind of interesting because pretty much every other ET type at one point or another has done a healing, but I did not have a single case of a reptilian healing. Culver City, there was the Battle of Los Angeles where the UFO came flying right over Culver City.
42, yeah.
Amazing.
I'm sure there are quite a number of sightings. I can't think of some offhand, but I know that they're out there because they're everywhere. I mean, there's not a place on this planet where you can't track down a UFO sighting.
Here's another one for you. Do you believe that close encounters follow family lines, and if it has happened to you, it likely happened to a relative of a prior generation and will most likely happen to your next generation relative?
Absolutely. This is something I think most UFO researchers agree upon. It's something we found out early on, and it's certainly a question I am always asking someone, have you checked with your parents? What about your grandparents? There are cases where people have been able to track this going back, 5 generations or more.
1880s, yeah.
So yes, the answer to that is absolutely yes.
LA, biblical prophecy. What do you believe to be the truth regarding our future and Yeshua, and the supernatural events to come? And could this in days of Noah include the return of giants, Nephilim, and Nibiru connection?
Definitely, we will see the return of a Nephilim. It might be different than what happened, let's say, in antiquity. Sasquatch is certainly something we've sort of already touched on that. I believe in the biblical narrative. If you take, the biblical narrative is stuff like virgin birth, floating axe heads, talking donkeys, gold coins that appear out of the mouths of a fish, staffs that turn down and become snakes, walls of water that stand up by themselves, guys that walk on water, water that's changed to wine. You realize how crazy that is? I mean, you realize how absolutely bonkers that is? If we saw any of that, we'd be free. That's what the book talks about. That's what it talks about. And then it talks about all this prophecy which is going to happen. We're in a war. Most people don't understand this, and I'll try to cut this real short. This cosmic war has been between these two entities, the fallen cherub and El Elyon. And it's been going on for thousands of years. If you go back and read Genesis 3, it says there's a mandate that your seed will be at enmity with the seed of the woman. And enmity is war. The seed of the serpent, that's who El Elyon is talking to. The seed of the serpent will be at enmity with the seed of the woman. And so it's a genetic thing. This is what going back, 5 generations. It's all about the seed. There's a seed war. It's all about genetics. And it's spilling out over on this planet now. But we are headed to a time, in my opinion, absolutely tenuous, tumultuous, and unprecedented, unlike any other time in history. And it's only a period of years, and then everything changes. The good guys show up at the end. The cavalry literally rides in at the end.
Preston, going back to what you said, this is actually just a comment, not a question. It's from Connie Sarah. My family has had 4 generations of UFO connection sighting and abductions, which goes along to what you said earlier. Okay,
Yeah.
This last one, the author is Andromeda. It's for everyone. Where are Nephilim now, and where can we presently find them? Are they walking amongst us, and what's their agenda? Who wants to start?
They're in Mount Shasta, from what I understand, giants.
That's where they are, you're saying now, presently?
I've heard that.
And what about
You're the
walking amongst
expert.
us an agenda?
Well, I'm not an expert on the Nephilim, but I know someone who is.
I know 2. 2.
My new best friend, Preston.
Walking
Yeah.
amongst us, there is that picture that we got.
From Peru.
Yeah, Brian sent me this picture from Nazca, Peru,
Uh-huh.
of this guy in a plaid shirt walking down the street with an elongated head, a live person. I still have it on my computer, and it's like, wow. I mean, his head was like really big, really big. And then in some of the C-14 tests, I will let LA chime in on this one, but it's kind of interesting what we're discovering.
We did 2 carbon-14 dating on samples. One came back 2,000 years. That's the mummy, the baby mummy head in the back, and on Trail 2
Watchers 8.
in Watchers 8. The other one was an elongated skull, which I showed you but never commented about. It was one that swept back like that, next to the human skull. That carbon dated out at 800 years. Very, very new. The goal is to create a hybrid which looks and acts human and can pass for human, but will have supernatural powers. And you'll have trouble telling. But that's the goal. In fact, if you've seen the miniseries Taken, the little girl at the end, that's precisely where it's going. That's what they want. But here's the rub. Will it be soulless? It'll be a hybrid being, but will it have a soul? We have souls. Everyone in this room, I'm assuming, has a soul. We're all human. They won't have souls. That's why they're called the soulless ones.
What about the agenda? What do you think the Nephilim's agenda is?
To be worshipped.
Preston, Rick, you agree?
Well, based on what we've seen in Peru, it certainly seems that way. I mean, you look at these structures, and there's large, what look like thrones carved into the side of mountains. I mean, really big. I mean, they're thrones. And you can imagine people like coming up to them. And then you see like these Egyptian paintings where there's this really big dude with a big
Yeah.
head,
Yep.
and all these little guys are up worshiping him, you know? And you know, when I was younger and in school, I'm going, oh, wow, this is almost cartoonish looking, you know? And it's like, I wonder why they painted this guy so big. Now I kind of think they were just painting what
Literally,
they saw.
yeah, literal.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Bible. I think a lot of it is not so much metaphorical.
No,
think
I don't
it's
believe it is.
literal. Yeah.
Well, the historical accounts are amazingly consistent in
Yes.
terms of, them being
Yes.
aggressive. And interesting, speaking of modern times, Timothy Good, well-known researcher,
Yes,
uncovered a contactee case involving giants.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, yeah, I think that the ETs, if they're collecting all our genetic material, certainly
Played
got
God.
the genetic material of the giants as well. So they may be extinct or not running around a lot, but they're they're probably still out there.
We're out of time, so I'm going to try to squeeze one last question, and because we are out of time. What's it going to take for us to wake the world up?
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
I think. And I know in terms of the ET contact, this is one of their main agendas. Out-of-body exploring, this is something I got very into. It's a very revelatory experience and something I do a lot of teaching on. And I think this is what we see with a lot of people who are having ET contact, is they're trying to wake people up in a number of different areas. So yeah, I think it's going to happen.
Rick in LA?
Well, I think we just need to continue showing people that there's other things going on besides, Monday Night Football. It's like
Yeah.
there's a lot of other stuff happening, and most of it is completely like buried or hidden or made fun of, or doesn't sound scientific enough to people, or they don't have the evidence they need. Is one reason why I wanted to do the Comburgas thing and show every step, because I figured, people will say, I can just read the YouTube comments now, he made it up, it's a 3D animation and he said it in there. Well, no, it's not really that at all. And we just have to constantly show people that, no, we're not making this stuff up, it all is actually happening, and how come you're not interested in it?
Yes. LA, final
What
thoughts?
separates the biblical narrative really from any other book on the planet is the thread of prophecy from Genesis to Revelation. And most churches completely never talk about the prophetic thread. They just ignore it. So most people don't even know what the prophecies are. If I gave you an address, Isaiah 17. Isaiah was a prophet that lived a couple thousand years ago. 17 is the chapter. There's nothing spiritual about saying that at all, or even religious about it. It's just an address. It's like turn to chapter 4, page 58. That's all it is. Isaiah 17 talks about the destruction of Damascus. And that prophecy has never been fulfilled. And we are looking at Damascus being pulled apart brick by brick. The Psalm 83 war, written 2,500 years ago, talks about Israel in the latter days going up against these Arab nations. The Ezekiel 38-39 prophecy talks about, guess who the top one is? Gog and Magog, Russia, Turkey. All those nations go up against Israel, and Israel destroys them. I mean, it's right there under our noses. All we have to do is look, and it's not like some of it's a little tricky, but most of it a 13-year-old can read and go, oh, this is what's going to happen. It's right there, and yet we don't read it, we don't look at it. So because I'm a frank supernaturalist, I think that what was written will come to pass, what was foretold will unfold.
Agreed. Well said. Everybody give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you. And now let's bring up Yvonne so everybody can give her a round of applause for putting everything together.